Are you building an IoT project and find connectivity troublesome? Do you find that Wi-Fi doesn't work as you expect? Is 4G giving you trouble? Well, if that's the case, then it seems that you may need something out of this world. Hello and welcome to this Space Age episode for Electromaker. I'm your host and edumaker, Robin Mitchell. In today's episode, we will explore what the Blue Star Note is, why it is awesome, and how it can help make sure that your future wireless IoT projects can always phone home. To be able to follow our tutorial on the Blue Star Note, you will need to get yourself a few things. Firstly, you will need a Blues Dev Kit, as the Star Note will only work with the Blues Note cards. And secondly, you will need to get the Star Note Starter Kit. No, Sherlock. The trouble with terrestrial connectivity is that it's just that, terrestrial. It's great for most applications. But when it comes to projects that need to be truly connected no matter where they are, terrestrial connectivity just won't suffice. Connectivity is essential in many projects, and it is what has made modern life so remarkably easy. We can access information from anywhere in the world, stay in touch with loved ones no matter where they are, and even control our homes remotely. However, while there are many alternatives available, no one technology dominates. Bluetooth is great for short-range, low-power applications, while Wi-Fi is ideal for high-bandwidth tasks. Cellular networks are perfect for roaming, but they can be costly and inconsistent. Each of these technologies has their own strengths and weaknesses, and trying to create a device that can connect to all of them is no small feat. But it's not just the technology itself that can be problematic. The networks that support them can also be a major hurdle. Some networks may not be available in remote areas, or they may be too costly to connect to. Others may outright ban public connectivity, making it impossible for devices to connect. Then there are mission-critical applications that require redundancy. These applications cannot afford to lose connectivity as it can have serious repercussions. In such cases, having a single connection is simply not sufficient. So, what can be done? Well, one option is to use satellite connectivity, but this comes with its own set of challenges. Satellite providers are notoriously difficult to deal with, and they rarely show interest in projects unless they have great potential to generate substantial wealth. Even then, the costs associated with satellite connectivity can be prohibitively expensive, with high upfront fees and ongoing subscription charges. Of course, satellites can be seen everywhere, which is why they are so highly desired. But unless us makers and engineers of prototype projects can experiment with these services, then the idea of satellite communication in our projects is basically never going to happen. Unless. For those who have longed for satellite communication that actually works for your projects, which is maker-friendly, has completely open pricing, and doesn't need you to sit in a boardroom with executives who don't have a brain between them deciding if your project is worth their time or not, you can tell I have a bit of an axe to grind there, then you will be very happy to see Blue's latest offering, the Star Note. The Blue Star Note is an add-on to a cellular or Wi-Fi note card that accompanies your pre-existing note card devices and provides a last resort satellite connection should you not be able to connect to your preferred network, such as Wi-Fi or cellular. Now, I need to be very clear here. This does not provide a sole connection that gives any project satellite connectivity. No, it's a last resort, meaning that it needs other note cards to work, and will only be used if there are no other connectivity options available. Now, this card has everything needed to get that satellite connectivity working, which makes integrating it into existing projects trivial, and the use of JSON commands over UART makes it trivial to code and work with, just like the other Blues note cards. Making things even easier, thanks to pre-existing libraries for the Arduino programming environment, using this card in code is as simple as a few lines of instructions, if even that. But what about data? How much data does this card even have? Well, this card comes with a whopping 18 kilobytes of data entirely free that doesn't expire. Hang on a minute, 18 kilobytes? That doesn't sound like a lot, right? Well, considering that this is designed for last resort use, typically sending 1 or 2 messages a day, you will find that sending small IoT data packets can see this card being useful for long periods of time. For example, if you send 1 50-byte message per day, this card would have enough data for an entire year. However, as this card doesn't require a subscription, you are never locked into any terms and conditions that, let's face it, rarely help you. On top of that, the pricing model for adding more data is 100% transparent with no hidden fees. Just top up as needed, get that yummy data, and start sending messages. Sadly, this card cannot provide global coverage due to the restrictions placed by the satellite operators, meaning that you have to check this coverage map to get an idea of whether the card will work where you are or not. Thankfully, most land is covered, with only the ocean and some nations not being available. I think it has something to do with prioritizing signal strengths in areas that will actually use the data because, satellites are expensive and they can't cover the whole planet. Overall, what I would say is that the Blue StarNote card is the first satellite device on the market that is maker-friendly. So, are you ready to start using it? Let's go.
So now that we've looked at what the StarNote is and why you'd want to use it, it's time to actually use it. So in this case, we're going to be going through the StarNote Quick Start Guide because honestly, it is brilliant. It's got everything you need to get your StarNote connected. Now, the first thing you're going to need to do before you can even think about using this is get yourself a notehub.io account. The good news is it's completely free. And the reason why you need one of these is because this thing is going to send some notes. And those notes have to go somewhere. And in this case, they all go to the NoteHub. So you need an account to create a project so this guy can send data. Now, before we jump into the tutorial for the StarNote, we need to go ahead and create a project first. So I've registered for an account and I'm now on notehub.io, and all I need to do is click Create Project. I can give my project a name, so we're going to call it StarNote. It's quite nice and simple, and then we'll create the project. Now, once the project's been created, we're going to get something called a product UID. Now, we need to save this because we have to program it into our Blues wireless card so that it knows which hub to talk to, or which project hub to talk to. So now that we've created the project, we're going to go ahead and copy the project UID, and we're going to put that somewhere aside later so we can then use it when we then synchronize our wireless cards to the hub. So moving on to the StarNote Quick Starts, I'm not going to go through everything in too much detail because this is a 40 to 50 minute tutorial, but I reckon we can speed things up a little bit so we can just see how to actually get started. Now, one fantastic feature that Blues has is an in-browser terminal, which means if we click this little button on the right here, I've already connected my Blues wireless card with the board to the PC, and I can go ahead and select my USB note card. And now I've got a USB to UART terminal in browser. I don't need any extra software. It works natively in Chrome. And that means that when you go through the tutorial and you see little bits of code that you can try, you can just plug them straight in and it works. And it is honestly a fantastic feature. I do think some other websites have done this, but Blues was the first one I've ever seen do this flawlessly. Now, when it comes to using the right kind of browser, unfortunately, I've only found Chrome to be the only one working. Safari, Firefox, Opera, they all seem to be giving me some hassle. And so Chrome is really the only one that properly supports the USB to UART in browser terminals. So stick with Chrome if you want things to be easy. Now, a really important thing to note is that when you're doing the quick start tutorial, do not be like me and be an idiot. Make sure that you do not connect your StarNote card to this carrier board until the tutorial says to do so. Otherwise, you are going to have some real problems. If you were to connect your StarNote to the note carrier at the beginning of the tutorial, you might find that you end up using all your satellite data. So don't connect it until it tells you to. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and send this command here, this method dash. Now what this does, it tells me what's the preferred communication method for my device. Now it's telling me Wi-Fi, and that's great. But if you wanted to use the StarNote, you've got two options. You could set this to NTN, which means non-terrestrial network, or you could set it to a weird one, which is kind of like Wi-Fi-NTN. Now in practice, you would use the Wi-Fi-NTN because what that would do is it would try to use Wi-Fi first, and if it couldn't find Wi-Fi, then it goes satellite. But during the tutorial, it's going to tell you to go NTN, which means it will only be using the satellite. Now that's great for prototyping, terrible for production, because you don't want your card to unnecessarily use the satellite data if you've got Wi-Fi available. So in this case, we're going to just keep it at Wi-Fi for now because we need to do at least one synchronization with the hub before we can use the satellite board. So I'm going to go ahead and just go through all these commands really quickly. So I programmed my network credentials into the Blues wireless card, but I'm not going to show you what they are because I don't want you guys accessing my network. But the next thing that's important is now the note template. So a note is basically just a packet of data. It's a JSON object that your device sends to the Note Hub. And it could include all kinds of things, GPS positions, temperature, humidity, pressure, all these different things you could put into that JSON object, that note. And then when you send that note to the Note Hub, it then stores it and then you can use it for some other stuff later. But in order to send a note, we have to create a template, and the template is basically our file that we're going to fill with data. Now, normally, it doesn't really matter how big that template is, because if you're using Wi-Fi, there's no real cost to data for sending things over Wi-Fi. You know, you can send huge amounts of data and it really costs you nothing. But satellite data is extremely expensive and you do not want to be filling that up too fast, which is why we have to create a special template for this card, and it's going to be a compact type, which basically means that we're going to be sending as little data as possible every time we do a synchronization with the StarNote to the Note Hub. So to do that, we can use this command that I've just entered into the terminal, and all it's doing is creating a satellite.qo sort of file. That's going to be the name of the note file that we're going to populate with data. And you can see that the format is compact, and that way we keep it as small as possible. And the body is what's going to be the data that we want to send, what we want to send back to the Note Hub, whether it's something like a sensor reading or maybe an event detection, something like that. Now, the next command that we have to program into our Blues wireless card is really important. We are setting the hub that it's going to talk to. If you don't do this, your device will have absolutely no idea where to send all this data. Now, remember before that we talked about the product UID? Well, this is where we now copy this into this command. So you've got the product, and we replace that with our product ID, and we hit that. Now, once we then send the command sync, what that's going to do is that this guy is going to talk to the Note Hub, look for that project, and then synchronize with it. So we hit enter, and it's now going to turn the Wi-Fi on, communicate with the hub, synchronize, and then close the connection. And you can see here that it's now completed. So now that the Blues wireless card has successfully synced to the project hub, it is time to connect our StarNote card to this board. Now, because it's an M2 type keyboard, make sure you put your screw in, otherwise you will have problems. And then once this is screwed in, we can head over to the car where we're going to stick some antennas onto the ceiling. We're going to drive around, and then hopefully we can get this board to communicate with the satellites. Yeah, I think I used the wrong screw. There we go. Now it's got the correct screw. Much better. Okay, so we've got the two antennas on top of the car, the larger one for the satellite, the smaller one for the GPS. They come through the skylight onto the actual note carrier card itself. We've got the StarNote module here with the connected antenna ports. We're going to go ahead and close up the skylight. It's very cold at the moment, so I've got gloves on. And then once that's closed up, I'm going to get a USB-C cable, connect it to my board, get the laptop over here, get driving to test the satellite. So the Blues StarNote is now connected. We are on the quick start tutorial guide, and the reason why we're back here is because we need to do a few little things before we can send data over satellite. Now what we have to do is put the note card into what's known as NTN mode. Essentially, we don't want it to use Wi-Fi, we want it to only use the satellite connection. So I'm going to go through this tutorial. My terminal is connected and I need to go and find the command to do that, and it's very simple command. It's literally just a card transport method. Now I need to change that from the dash, which tells me that it's working on Wi-Fi, to NTN. But first, let me just make sure that we can actually sync the device, because if we don't, we might struggle with satellite later. So I'm just going to do a quick hub sync. Try it like that. And let's see if it connects. Fantastic. 20 changes. It's synchronized. Wi-Fi disconnected. That's great. Wi-Fi disconnected. That means it's worked. So we head over to the project. We open up the StarNote project, and we can see that the last connection was today, bang on, perfect. But wait, we want to make the satellite work. So Now we're going to go and set it to NTN mode. So to do that, we just need to send it that same command, but this time we're going to change the method from dash, which means kind of like whatever you want to do, to NTN. Now we've set it to NTN, so now we're only going to use the satellite network. Now, what we're going to do next is make sure we've got our template, our note template set up. So we're going to do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set some data to that note. And now we need to synchronize it. So we're going to use the hub sync out true. But before we do that, we're going to trace it because we want to be able to see it actually communicating with the satellites. So go ahead and put in the trace request command. And then once we click sync, I'm going to start driving around because I know that there's not much connectivity around here due to the fact that we've got buildings. So the moment you drive down the road, it's absolutely fine. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the synchronization. I'm going to start driving forward like this, and then I'm going to go around the street and hopefully it will connect. So it's probably, yeah, still looking for satellites. So let's go ahead and just park somewhere completely in the open. And I'm going to park down the road because I know there's a great big park there. Oh, there we go. It's sending data. Oh, fantastic. There we go. But let's just be sure by doing one more sync. So I'm going to go to the note file. I'm going to add some data to it again. And then I'm going to do another synchronization with the hub. Now I think it worked. Note hub sync attempt 12 seconds ago. I believe it worked. Let's try it one more time. Yeah, I think it worked. So now let's go back and check to see if our data has appeared on the Note Hub. So we've just moved back into the garage and the internet is now working as expected, except for the fact that we're getting this great big 404. Perfect, there we go, star notes. Let's see if those things did come through. Ahaha, we have our nice little symbol right there, the satellite symbol, which is fantastic. If we open that up, we go to the events, we should be able to see. Well, hey, there's our satellite data right there. And you can see the body has the data that we sent. Well, that's absolutely fantastic. It's working.
So now that you have the StarNote card working nicely, you may be wondering where you can use it. Well, as discussed at the start of this video, you will be able to use this thing just about anywhere that needs remote connectivity, minus the ocean, which uses a pre-existing Blues Note card. But with regards to applications, well, it's pretty much countless. To start, any device that needs to roam can take great advantage of this card. While the amount of data available is limited, it is still perfect for sending occasional data packets when all other network options have been exhausted. For example, this could be used in a vehicle to report its position once a day, so that even in the most remote countryside, this card will keep you connected. Incidentally, you can also use it in a car wash.
So we're in the middle of a car wash and I've completely forgot that I left the antenna stuck to the top of the car, so we're going to find out how good it is. Either it's blown off and Richard's going to get me a brand new one, or it survives and there it is getting knocked around. Let's see what happens.
On the topic of tracking, you could use this in any asset tracker. This could be in the form of cargo tracking across borders, the location of delivered goods, and monitoring of anything of exceptional value. Again, this card would only be used to send data maybe once a day if there is no network, but if the device records its data throughout the day, identifies data of importance, and then only sends that, this note card will definitely do well. For example, if you are sending a valuable antique and want to know who dropped your priceless Ming vase during transit, a small accelerometer could be used to measure the G-forces on the sensor, record the timestamp when an impact is detected, and then send that data over the satellite link when needed. Smart cities are also another example of an application that could very well benefit from such a satellite connection. Despite what smart cities promise, we all know that connectivity is always going to struggle at times. And it's possible that you'll get dead zones in such cities. Thus, this card could be used to provide connectivity in even the most extreme of events such as grid failure and large-scale network downtime. Industrial systems are an application area that are of particular interest to me. Anyone who has ever worked in industrial systems or who knows anything about them will know that the vast distances, remote nature, and sensor data requirements involved. For example, a sensor sat on some pipeline in the middle of the desert will unlikely have any communication capabilities whatsoever, and in these examples, the StarNote is an excellent choice for providing connectivity. However, real-time streaming would not be possible due to the data limits, so make sure that you send data only around once a day. Unless of course you're absolutely filthy rich, in which case go nuts. The Blue StarNote is truly an excellent piece of hardware that brings easy satellite communication to your wirelessly connected projects. The ability to directly talk to these cards through a serial terminal or a UART bus means that it can easily be used with microcontrollers and computers. The small size of this card means it's easy to integrate. The transparent pricing nature and lack of subscription services means that there are no commitments, and the ability for this thing to work as a last resort option means that no project will ever be disconnected, subject to where it's operating, like the ocean. Anyway, if you want to grab one of these kits, then head over to the Electromaker store, and if you want a chance to win one of these kits, but maybe not the one that went through the car wash, then leave a comment in the description below detailing what you would do with it. And as always, if you want to show your support for this channel, then hit that like button, smash the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.